talk about Intarsia and Segmentation. Marcus was George's first student, and I believe I was the second one. Now, the reason I said from a beginner's perspective, maybe, when I walked into Marcus's workshop, he is no beginner. He has done just about every pattern that was ever invented, and he challenges George on all the ones George hasn't even done, and you'll see some pictures a little later. This just happens to be a book by Judy Gale Roberts. Her father was, one of the people that brought Intarsia back into, this country, and she took over when he passed away. So, from her website, she defines Intarsia, a mosaic of wood fitted and glued into a wooden support popular in 15th century Italy for decoration. They did a lot of furniture with it then. So that's about how far it goes back. So now we're going to talk a little about from the beginning of Intarsia. Actually, I can too quickly. I was supposed to pause a little. Okay, so just to prove to you, this is George's, it's not even his house, it's like his patio area. His house is where the good stuff is. But this is just a lot of stuff on George's wall. And it's amazing, the work he has done. Here's some close-up. That's the baby of what Marcus made. That was one of the challenges. They both did, what was it, like 700 something pieces? Marcus made the big one, George made the baby, but the same pattern. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Marcus for a while, and he'll just tell me when to click.
The one on the left is a cornucopia. That's an Intarsia piece. I hadn't been doing that very long, but that just shows you how to get the 3D effect and choosing to select your wood to kind of correspond with whatever piece of fruit or product you're working with. And as we go through our lesson, we're going to find out why we want to keep our grains going the same way in height. The one on the right is a segmentation, which you don't have to do as much sanding if George ain't there, and then you can sand and shape it up as nice as your vision can let you, and then put it together as a segmentation. So we're going to go through and well, it just Intarsia how you use the natural wood, its color, advantage of the grain, and it requires no painting. Segmentation is cheaper to do. You cut from one piece of wood, less expensive, and select the colors that you like to have, and the parts can fit easier together. You don't have to be as precise on your line of tracing.
Because usually that one piece of wood is like Home Depot pine wood, so it's a lot less expensive. And since you're cutting everything from one piece, it's going to fit easier than if you're cutting different wood and trying to get it to match.
I don't have the whole thing, but that's Kathy Wise's picture of scroll saws beginning in Intarsia. Before you get through making one of them your first time, you wonder if that is a beginner's pattern. But that's just the same as this right here.
Need light?
No. What you do is when you get your patterns from whatever you got, there's this one here. There's several ways you can do them.
We actually have that on the screen on another slide.
Yeah, but you better hurry. Okay. Well, this is there. And if you notice the arrows, what they represent, if you notice some of them go a different way, well, that's your grain marking. Always remember to put numbers on your pattern, because you're going to forget them when they get mixed up. So you number your pattern and the type of wood that you want to use, like W is for white and M for medium, and whatever color you want. And then as you start, you can go from there when you select your wood that you're going to be using.
Also, some people think that if you do it in red, it's easier to see the line when you have to cut it. And by the way, when I was learning from George, I was also kind of new to scroll saw. So here he's giving me these patterns. I'm like afraid to cut. I said, how close do I have to get to the line? And he looks at me like I'm crazy. He says, right down the middle.
I can assure you, if you don't stay on your line in Intarsia, you are going to get tired or sanded, because the parts will not fit, and they never fit suit George. So I try to stay on the line. Now, there are several ways that you can go about doing your patterns. You can take the pattern and then have several copies made of it, and then cut the piece of wood that you need off of it. You have to have more than one, because one piece of wood that joins the other, you can't cut that close on the line. So I learned how from George, and many of you's got a Delta CAD program, to put our picture in Delta CAD and then draw it, and then we can separate the parts as we like and wherever you want it.
Okay, also when you cut the pieces, you see this piece you're going to cut out, and you're going to ruin part of number 6, 5, 19, and 20, because you're going to cut this and put it on the grain. But when you have, for example, the same color from 2, 4, and 3, and also in the same direction, you'll cut those out as one piece. You can paste those together. Therefore, when you cut them, they're obviously going to fit together easier, since you're making one cut on them.
Now to start off, we're going to make this cat through this program, and we've selected the color of wood, and you want to get your grains as nice and even as you can. So we're using, on this one, walnut and aspen. Now, there's several ways you can paste your pattern to your board. The one on the left is one that Stuart uses there, is this contact paper. It's like two-sided tape, and you peel this off, it's clear, it's like it's clearer than wax paper, and you can see where you want to put your pattern in relation to the grain, if you would. So, and then the right hand corner there is blue tape. I mostly use blue tape, but I can remember where the grain is, and but it's up to people's choice. And using blue tape, you have to spray on your pattern to hook to the tape. Where in using this double-sided contact paper here, you do not have to use extra glue. Now, I've replaced that one this week. That's I guess all of you have a board with staples in it to where you lay your patterns down on top of it when you spray your pattern to put onto your board. Now, you don't have to have that much glue on, but it is nice when the glue starts building up on it. It seems to hold your little pattern. Sometimes you spray, I use 7 to 7, Some use contact cement, and then use this. You don't use neither one of them. So that's what we do with that by putting your pattern on here and go from there. Now, we've done cut out all our little pieces of our pattern, which it may have took 2 or 3 of these copies, and then I cut them and paste them in. You see your grain there as you go. And on the blue, you know the grain's going east and west there. And just cut those out and follow the lines as best you can. And as he mentioned earlier, when you can combine some pieces together, it makes the fitting so much better too. Now you're beginning to cut it out. You want to just take your time. Remember, you're still a beginner, and you're going to want to follow the line the best you can. And that 3/4 inch walnut sometimes is hard, so you want to be careful for it if the board bounces with you or what have you. Then just cut out all your brown pieces. They numbered, and then as you cut one, on the underside, mark it. I do. While I got them sitting on the side of the table. Yes, sir. The number of the piece of wood, where it goes.
If anybody has any questions, you feel free to interrupt.
What size blade do you use for that?
90% of the time, a number 5 reverse blade. Now, if you're cutting like the other day, that golf ball in that piece of wood, it's 1 3/4. I use a number 7 blade. Now, that's a aromatic cylinder. It's like this one, only this one is foam. That's where you done cut your piece out, and you done cut the whole pattern out, and you've laid it down on your template here, your pieces. And you know, now you want to visualize how to start shaping your parts the best you can. And you shape them and put it down, shape some more, till you get it the way you want. I don't know how a person can do it without a sanding disc and one of these little jig tables to hold it to do the sanding. It is so much better. I don't know how you would do that sanding otherwise. Yes, now that jig is just a thing we made. You buy these outside, and I just put my piece here and take your sandpaper and sand it to fit, to sand, or whatever you need to do to get it in shape. That's what I'm doing there. That is this. All of you's got a glue hold, I'm pretty sure. Because if you don't, you're going to do this a lot. And if you leave this top off, you're going to have a mess. And it has happened that you don't put it on real good. As we found out in Georgia, you don't have to glue the whole piece when you're fixing to put it together, because your backing is going to hold it. Just put a little spot and it'll spread out and hold it. But I used to just smooth over the whole thing.
And you want to keep the glue low so it doesn't come up the top.
Now, there's some pieces. If you'll notice, each one has a different size riser on it. So as your pattern or piece of kit that you're making in here is to raise the tail or lower it, and that's called risers. When you look at a pattern from Judy Gill Roberts or Kathy Wise, it may say on there -1/4 or plus 1/8. So that means you add or subtract off of it. And when you put your backing on your piece, don't have it the same size as your original piece of wood, because it will not let it fit in there. If you notice, that one was piece number 20. You just about know where that big piece went, but I just go on and do them and kind of leave a little edge, a border, where it will fit good back on your pattern. Now, that's coming time to start putting it together on your pattern here. So what I've done is I always put a piece of wax paper on it. And in case if some of your glue bleeds through your part, it won't stick and ruin your pattern up under it. And then you can just peel the wax paper off of your piece that is stuck with glue. Now we're beginning to we've cut all the pieces. Now we're going to start putting it together. And you done dry fitted it on there, and then you want to see which piece you need to cut or which piece you need to rise it. You never want to have a 90-degree cut. If you notice, every piece has been sanded around the eyes, around the nose, or wherever you cut. Try not to have a 90-degree cut. That rounding it off makes it look so much better. Now,
Also in between, like where you have the whiskers, you like make like a little double cut so you can sand it round. Over here, over here.
you want to, as he mentioned, your pattern is just going to show one line in that instant, but you want to cut it big enough that you can get your sandpaper in and out of there pretty reasonable. That's where your hole down here comes in, to shape it like you want. Now we're beginning to, the puzzle has done been temporarily glued together. Now we're beginning to, we drew all the way around it, and we're letting it be as this is going to be your back pattern. If you'll notice, I'm cutting just inside of the line a little bit from the original pattern mark. Now, it's up to you as what type of glue to use. Some like this Type Bond. Some uses just put it on and then take a brush or spatula and smooth it all the way around. That's where you would like to get glue on all parts of your backing. When you put it, your pattern on the whole very well. Now, if you'll notice, we put aluminum wax paper over the pattern or the puzzle of the cat. The reason you do that is, again, that glue bleeds through. In this case, I'm not using clamps. Sometimes people use 15 clamps to clamp it down. I'm using bags of shot, BB shots, gun pellet. That bag is really too heavy. That's 25 pounds. I bought 100 pounds, sent a man after him to get them. He come back and said, "You owe me $116. I had no idea I was going to spend that much money out of used sand. But make you some bags like that and put them at about 12 pounds and it'll hold it. We put 2 bags on there, and I let it sit 2 hours or longer overnight, whichever one. But we're doing this is trying to get through, so I don't know how long we let it stay. But that is a even out way to do it. I don't know of no other way to get it as even. Now, when we finished, you done come back and took your weights off. Now, what are you going to do? So you want to, I use a sand and seal first time. I just lightly spray it, and it dries in probably 30 minutes, or give it longer. And then I use 400 sandpaper to get the dust off or whatever may have
Because the wood's
accumulated.
gonna raise when you do that.
And that works out great. And if you'll notice in there, where like inside the tail, where he's got the tail curled up and the leg is down there, and that's like a hollow spot to his thing. That's where you gotta start learning to cut bigger or smaller pieces, like up under the nose. You round his foot is to the left, and then his paw is up under his nose there, or whatever. And just practice, and don't throw it away, because the next person don't know as much about it as you thought you did. But save it, and then you're gonna improve on it. I tell George I'm cheating, but I like to compare something he does, because I figure I can do half as good as he does, because you start off 50% chance. So I like to be able to compare, and as you make more than one, which I did there, you'll improve on your own stuff by looking at it. Now I use the sealer on the left. It's faster, and to me, I just use it. Now, depth is a good spray. I usually put gloss first, and then if the project don't call for it, I may put satin over the gloss. And it turns out good, but that's the way we did it. No, we didn't on the cat. Now, Stuart can tell you about the barber here and how he does it.
Okay, this Judy Gale Roberts used to recommend until she started selling a different brand. But this is like a gel stain. What you do, well, first of all, you didn't have to rub it off after you put it on. So I like these kind of rags because they're like lint-free. It doesn't get the lint all over your piece. So I take like a foam paintbrush and I, paint all over it, give it a nice thick coat first. You let it dry a little, and then just a few minutes, and then you rub it hard, you wipe it all off. And you're going to do that a few times, but in between each time, this takes a lot longer. Instead of maybe waiting a half hour, an hour for the next coat of what he was spraying, I might wait 6-8 hours in between coats. And you see here, I'm just painting it on. Then I have, this is a really powerful air blower because a lot of it got within all the little slots and crevices of the piece there. So I'm now blowing it out. And as it blows out, now you're going to have to rub again because a lot of it's going to come up and get over the piece that you just brushed off. So you're going to have to brush again. Then you just leave it for a bunch of hours and come back later or tomorrow morning or whatever. And that's the way we did this one.
Yes, and you cannot be in a hurry using this, but the final result is real nice, as you can see.
So actually, now we can pass around the final piece, which
this is the one that
and we're not done yet, but we'll just
they can
do
look
this.
at it. But this is when we started, and there it is.
Where do you get lint free rags?
Where do you get the what?
Box of the rags.
Oh, I get that in Sam's Club or Home Depot, or, they sell it all over. Now, okay, now we're going to show you some of our work, what we've done, and Marcus has done 100 times more than I have. Hans isn't here, but I'd like to thank him for asking us to do this together because you wouldn't believe a New Yorker and somebody who identifies himself as Gomer Pyle can become such good friends. So we had, at the beginning we had music, so I'm thinking, okay, as we show this, what theme song am I going to use to show our work? So this is what I've come up with. That's Green Acres. Okay, so first we have a few of mine. This piece I actually did for a boomerang box one time. And notice, you know, how the grain and different colors here and everything. This piece, for those of you who weren't here when I brought it in for show and tell, I have a friend, she's like about a 55-year-old woman from California. And that little dog on the left, her grandmother gave her when she was like 5 years old. And she travels a lot, and she'll never go on a trip without taking that in a separate suitcase. So I decided to make a pattern and make an intarsia of the same thing for her, with all the stitches and, you know, 50 years later, all the, you know, patches and everything.
Good job.
Okay, this is my golden retriever over here. This I've actually had many requests for. I've only done, besides for mine, for one other person so far.
Is that a real dog?
Yeah. No, it's just this is a pattern. Actually, the person I gave it to, that I gave one to, actually did name it Stuart and hung it on their wall. Okay, this over here. This is my masterpiece. This I made actually around last year when I was only doing this for a few months. And this is Piano Girls. And on the screen there, what I showed you is I took that Paul Church marquetry class and I basically did the same thing. So I brought both in to show you, you know, the difference between marquetry and intarsia. Marquetry is a lot quicker, but I think intarsia is a lot nicer. Okay, now Marcus has a gazillion pieces. You can go through his house, his workshop, everything. It's like he's done everything. That's why I say he's not a beginner. So maybe you want to tell about some of your pieces?
There's just some of the pieces like I have here that's not painted are intarsia pieces. The ones that are painted like SpongeBob and one or two more there is segmentation. But the bulk of our work we do is intarsia and just improve on it and go to the next pattern and cut it. The cat in the box is got a really good 3D effect to it. Yeah, we have one up here. Mostly every woman or kid likes cats, so you don't have a problem doing something with them. That's just some things that, when I first met George and he invited me to his house, he was working on that horse's head, or already done it. I said, well, that's what I want to do. He said, man, you jumping off top of the building instead of climbing up it. But at any rate, that was one of my first pieces with his patience of making, and I had it in mind, and I did make two. This little girl that came down sick at 4 years old, health is a thing, came up eventually like a brain tumor, and she died at 9 years old, but she was able to get it before she died. To this day, it's still in her room in her house. That's just some of my last thing I think I made is the duck flying with the sunset, sun, or the moon, and then these go. That giraffe has got 705 pieces to it. Well, George's little one's got 705 pieces. And we carried them to the wood show, and the people didn't even look at them. It kind of irritated me, but anyway. We got that. Where I live in Ball Ground, we have deer, and one day last week, early in the morning, I was going to get the paper, and a mama deer was there and a baby deer. And the baby started to get up, and it fell over just like a kid, and then it got back up and run across the driveway. We really liked that. That's some of my last things I made. That's a, what is that, Kathy Wise? Yeah, because she made a one that's 27 foot long, and came in very good in some kind of tune place. But that one there, I'm not ashamed to ask. I ask George sometimes, how do you do this or that? Sometimes he'll help me, sometimes he don't. But that's mostly what I did. And I'm proud of myself. I just learned how to cut a computer on. I always had someone do the work, not me, on that line in my business. But I traced a lot of that. I took her pattern and go down to the Stacy's or FedEx or whoever does it and have them to reduce theirs down to an 8 by 10, and then you can blow it back up the way you want it, and then that's the way we did that. And then I made the one behind it. George and I and his son made one for Jimmy Roper, Jimmy made one for his granddaughter, and she sent me the nicest thank you card and stuff like that. What pays for what we do. I mean, it costs you money to make the stuff and then you give it away, but when they send you that postcard and took care of it. That's just a reef inside of what few things she'll let me put inside the house. So that's one of them. I try to make a country house out of her city living, but it don't work. George made the panther. I made one. And the zebra, that's all just walnut and a little bit of aspen and a little bit of cedar, not too much. The dog and his 3 puppies, the setter, that's one of the first of Delta Cat that I drew up without George's help, so I was always proud of that. And the little boy going fishing. And
We're going to have some, if anybody has questions, but I have a question for Marcus. How in the world did you sand those kernels of corn?
It's 81 grains of corn there. You just take it, you do that mostly with your hand. But to give you a corn, if you ever do a cornucopia with the corn, take your yellow hardwood that you're going to use, put your pattern on, shape it that big, then put your pattern on it, and then cut them lines out. And then that corn, when you put it together, it's going to be, well, that's dry corn. That corn's been in the field no telling how long, so it's dried out. It's so imperfect, but that, again, you just have to take your time. And you don't realize I was in a business where I mashed the Georgia power button and everything went. Doing this by hand is just patience. Y'all don't know how hard it is to work with him. We go eat together and come back.
That's what my wife says.
So, all in all, we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, and maybe y'all did too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time to go home.
I